Hey guys, Unity here, back with another video. So today, we're going to talk about why ISIS is trash. Before we get into this, let me share the story about how I got ISIS. About 4 years ago, maybe five, I was at work. I got a light and dark scroll from an event, and for those of you who don't know, I used to work at a call center, so there was 30, 40 people around, all taking phone calls at the time. And I opened the light and dark scroll and I screamed there in my office. It was pretty hilarious. My manager wasn't happy about it, but yeah, that's what happened. I didn't get in any trouble or anything, but yeah, not something I should have been doing, but it was hilarious. So I wanted to share that with you guys. Let me tell you what ISIS has done for me since I've gotten ISIS. Back when I first got ISIS, she didn't do a whole lot for me. She helped out a little bit here and there in some TOA. I remember she got me through some of the stages where passives required, mostly the bosses, but it was a few stages here and there. It wasn't much. After that, she's pretty much sat in my storage for several years. I occasionally try to pull her out, see if I could throw her in arena or RTA or something. Never really does much for me. Recently, past few months ago or so, 4 or 5 months, I've started doing TOA Hell, and from what I've heard from everyone, ISIS is TOA Hell cheat code, which is complete bull. She helps and she can be more convenient, so you don't have to like completely switch up your teams for some of the fights, but I wouldn't say she's a cheat code at all. There are auto teams that are coming out now, and none of them have ISIS in them. So ISIS TOA Hell cheat code, not so much. I would rather just set up an auto team and use that than have to manual it with ISIS. Let's talk about what makes a good unit. There are different areas of the game units are used for, like PvE and PvP. There are farming monsters, monsters used for dungeons, TOA monsters, and then for PvP, there's Arena, Guild Battles and Siege, and RTA. So ISIS isn't a farmer, that's obvious. For dungeons, no. She doesn't do enough. There are set teams for the dungeons now. Useless. TOA, so I do admit there is some benefits in TOA Hell for convenience, but like I said, I'd rather build a auto team so I don't have to deal with any of that. For PvP, this is where things are a little controversial. I've heard a lot of people say she's not an RTA monster, she's a regular arena monster. But in reality, me personally, and a lot of people, like, they don't like to swap out teams. It slows things down, it's not as fun. It's much better to just avoid teams that you know your main team is going to die against and refresh. So, like Lucian Cleaves, stuff like that, where you just run right through it, don't really have to worry about it. Switching out here and there to throw ISIS in, it's not worth your time. She can potentially help against some teams, but it's very minimal. It's not worth it. I'd rather just leave. Guild Battles and Siege, I've heard of people using her in Guild Battle slash Siege. She might be useful here and there, but in a lot of instances, I'd rather just kill. That's That's the name of the game. You just kill. Especially guild battles and Siege. On RTA, they limit the number of like violent procs and stuff, so at least your effects aren't necessarily going to be removed indefinitely because of that. But in guild battles and Siege, violent procs, resistance, at least you don't have to go against someone that is actively choosing what their units are doing, but still rather just kill their units, not try to fuss with using Isis at all. Pretty much every time I've tried using her for guild battles and Siege, she hasn't really done anything for me. A lot of the time when I try to use her, we just lose. She doesn't have a versatile kit. She does one thing and one thing only, and it isn't useful hardly at all, almost anywhere. And then RTA, so back and forth on this. RTA, some people say she's really good, some people say she's not an RTA unit. I have her. I don't think she's an RTA unit. I more agree with her being used in Arena, but doesn't mean I'm going to waste the time to actually try to use her, because it's not worth it. So for RTA, you need a few things to win the match, to be successful in RTA. Imagine like a triangle, or in this case like a square, where it's a graph that explains like the skills that are necessary, and you don't necessarily need every necessary skill, but you need certain skills to synergize with each other to have an effective team. I'll put a picture on the screen for you guys to see as an example. So you're gonna need damage, you're gonna need speed and or take turns, you're gonna need sustain, and you're gonna need control. Like I said, you don't need all of them. For example, if you have speed, you have control, and you have damage, or a little bit of damage, you can continually control them so they aren't able to do anything, and you take turns so your skills get reset, and you can keep controlling them and just chip away until they're dead. You could do just damage and speed. You're gonna need a lot of damage. It's all varying levels depending on what kind of team comp you're gonna need. But the problem with Isis is she doesn't fit into any team. She doesn't bring enough of a kit to make her viable in like any team at all. I've tried like a speed team in the past, and it doesn't really work. You don't have enough damage. They can violent proc out. They can resist. It's a 2-turn Oblivion and Silence, right? That's her third skill. If they resist, it does nothing. If they violent proc out, it does nothing, because they take the turn. That's one of the turns, and then they violent proc, and that's the second turn, and now the Oblivion's gone. So it does nothing. And a lot of the units in the game that have passives, they are built on violent or have high resistance. So she doesn't really work at all. And those of them that don't have resistance or are violent, well, they probably do. But you gotta consider there are other ways to handle passive units. Like, if the passive unit doesn't have a cooldown, or if it does have a cooldown, you can reset them with like Zyroth, Samath, just like other units that reset skills. Not necessarily saying Zyroth is good for RTA, but... And then for those who don't have a passive that can be reset, there's other ways to counter them. Like, for Molly, for example, like you could heal block, right? So her passive does heals every time she takes a turn, but if every unit has heal block on it, then it's not going to do anything. So there's several ways to counter passives. Now, what are the odds that the team that you're going against has several passives that can't be reset, and also they're not built on violent or high resistance. And there has to be multiple units with Oblivion, otherwise you just use like Tessarion, because Tessarion is a single target Oblivion every turn. So you can apply it over and over again, and it's much more useful, because even if they do violent out, you can just reapply it. Plus he does damage and defense break, so much better than Isis. For her second skill, she does a strip and a sleep. Sleep doesn't do a whole lot, especially if you're using AoE units. The strip can be nice. Yes, it can be useful, and I have a clip where it does happen to be somewhat useful. But you gotta remember that for this type of team using Isis, all the stars need to align. In the clip, that's one of my better clips. I ran several tests with different teams against different units, and this is one of the best teams that I was able to make. Was it a good team? Not really, no. It's easily countered. There's a lot of ways to handle it. It's not versatile. You have to be going against a specific team, and you have to get really lucky. Otherwise, it almost never works. But I do have a clip. I'll show you guys the clip here real fast. Okay, so that's nice. Nice. Oh, dude. I think this is gonna work out. Oh, shit, I didn't stun you. What do you think about that? This is what I like to see right here. Just luck? I mean, to a certain extent, yeah. But I ideally probably wouldn't even go against your team specifically like this. But I just wanted to test it out to see if it was viable in like a normal setting where I was going against just anybody. But yeah, it seems like it has potential, especially against like specific types of teams. The types of teams I'd want to use it against are like tanky bruiser type teams mostly. But this will be a nice clip. Violent, please. No? Okay, so in that video, my runes aren't the best. I didn't put my top tier runes on the units, but at the same time, that wouldn't change a whole lot. The speed tuning is probably the main thing that's going to matter. A lot of the damage is reliant upon dots. If they take the dot units out, it doesn't work that well. If I had Rika, maybe Rika could go in there somewhere. I'm sure there's other teams that could possibly work, but from my testing, I can't find any use for her really in RTA. Other people might argue that. Other people might have good teams. I mean, let me know in the comments. I'd like to be able to use her in RTA. If she could actually help me get higher in the RTA rankings, I'd really appreciate it. but I don't see it. I don't think that that's gonna happen. Basically, what it comes down to is she requires too much setup, and everything needs to fall into place perfectly, or she's not really useful. I would like to see her reworked or possibly buffed. I realize buffing her could mess her up and make her too OP, and I'm not really asking that. I just like maybe remove the silence. The silence doesn't seem to really matter that much. Maybe add attack bar pushback instead of the silence or something. I don't know. I would like to see changes of the unit. I've had her for several years now, and she really hasn't done anything for me. But if you guys do have any comments, anything you guys would like me to try, drop them down in the comments or come by my Twitch stream and we'll test it out together. Remember to please like and subscribe. I'll post my links down in the description if you want to check me out on Twitch or help support the channel. Appreciate it all for stopping by. Make sure to check out my other videos. Have a good one.